So we're here at the CCA Workbench,
Yes, sir.
Dave, and we're going to be talking about all different types of mackerel. So why don't we just jump right in there?
Well, we're going to be talking mainly about Spanish mackerel. When we talk about kings and wahoo's a mackerel too, during other parts of the year. So I wanted to just focus on the little Spanish mackerel because he's the one that just about everybody in Florida can catch. You can stand on the shore and catch a Spanish mackerel, which you can't really say about the other ones. You might get lucky and catch a kingfish from a kayak close to the beach or something, but the little Spanish mackerel, he's the guy that we can catch. And
How do you know that this is a Spanish?
Well, for one thing, it's these little spots. He's the one who's got the little yellow spots on him. A Cirro mackerel looks very similar and has a lot of yellow on him, but most of his yellow is streaky. He's got streaks of yellow,
lines.
Lines instead of dots. And the little first dorsal fin is always got a black front edge, and that'll tell you between the little king mackerels and the Spanish mackerels, and between the king mackerels and the Spanish. Notice that his lateral line is pretty straight.
Right.
It's got a little dip right here.
Right.
A king mackerel's dips way down. It's got a great big dip.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got a huge dip. So that's the difference between the king and the Spanish mackerel. When they're little, it's hard to tell the difference, but that's how you would tell the difference. Thank king sailfish mouths for that beautiful Spanish mackerel.
Yeah, man. And then the small kingfish do run with the
yes.
the
A lot of times you'll
Cirros
catch them
Spanish.
together. Yeah. So it's good to know, especially with the limits and everything, because you can keep 12 of these, 12 inches long. Once they get 12 inches long, you can keep up to 12 per person.
We're going to talk about the teeth, I'm sure.
Yes,
so
sir.
Let me set this down.
Just like all mackerel fish, Spanish mackerel have sharp teeth, so you're going to have to use something to, to keep from getting cut off. I like to use wire. This is number 9 wire. I wouldn't use number 9. I'd use like number 4.
Right.
About as high as I would go, or 50, 40-pound monofilament. Depending on the size of the mackerel you're catching. If you're catching little ones, you could probably get away with 20-pound mono, but you're going to be losing a lot of stuff. I would probably, the lowest 40? I would go would be 40.
Yeah.
And then,
You can bump up to 60.
Yeah, and if you want to, you can use a little piece of wire and you can attach it to, some mono, and just run a little short. This is a long piece. I just did it so you can see it. But sometimes I'll only have a little piece of wire like this long.
Right.
And what I'll do with this way is I'll keep losing stuff, and if I'm not breaking it off, I'll just keep hacking it away until I get it, it's shorter and shorter and shorter.
Right.
But this little lure here, if I'm standing someplace, there's 2 or 3 different ways to catch Spanish mackerels. But if I'm standing on a rock or a jetty, which I did a lot of as a kid, that's how I, started fishing, was going out on the jetties. And that lure right there is probably your best one for just about everything. The little gotcha. And you heard Hag talk about it. It's a little tube lure with a weight in the front. Thing jerks all over the place, and you can do it in different ways. You can cast a long way, and you can cast it good ways out there and bounce it on the bottom, or you can just cast it all the way out and wind it and just wind.
It has a real tight wobble.
Right. You want to use a spinning reel usually because you want speed. Spanish mackerel like small things that are moving fast, and that's why we use all these little things. Like little spoons,
diamond lure,
the diamond lure, the Clark spoon. For if you're really wanting to catch a bunch of them and you start trolling to catch them, once you find a big concentration of them, you start trolling little Clark spoons and stuff through them. These little, with the different little colors, or just plain.
Right.
The Spanish will love those things. And once you go through there and you catch one on a spoon, you just keep hammering that spot, and you'll see them moving. And a good way to spot them, the spot Spanish mackerels, is look for the birds. When you're going up and down the beach, you'll see all these little birds coming down to the top of the water. What that is those big schools of Spanish and bluefish, which is also another good reason to use that wire. The Spanish mackerel and the bluefish will run together as well. And if you start getting into the bluefish, you're going to lose some junk as well. This is a jig. This is actually like a big sabiki rig for mackerels.
So when you get into them really thick, you put a weight on the
Correct.
one end.
Just like a big sabiki.
One end, and then you got all of these, and you just jig this quickly.
You're right, up and down, up and down, up and down, all the way to the top and all the way down. And you'll notice they've got this like a shrink tube on here, and what that does is it keeps their teeth from hitting tearing up the lure and getting into that little line right there and cutting you off, because they're bad about cutting you off. If any kind of lure you're going to be using, just make sure you bring a lot of them. Because you have to keep going down sometimes. The more you catch, the lower leader you got to use. You keep getting down smaller and smaller leader until you're losing a lot of stuff, and then you got to go to live bait.
Pretty work over here, man. Thank
No,
you
no
so
worries.
much.
I
Hey,
never
Bree.
knew so much about the Spanish mackerel.
Oh, I'm just talking.
Talk and talk.